on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way.
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Some content may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
We say fuck a lot.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Mountain Murders.
Oh, you're back?
Hey, she can't get rid of me that easy.
Well, I just wanted to let you know, Dylan, that the terms of your contract do stipulate that this is an at-will employment opportunity and that I can get rid of you at any time.
Oh, so basically you have instated policies that allow you to defund unions, essentially. So you're right to work for less state.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
Yeah, this is like an at-will kind of state where I don't have to allow you to be on my show. And it seems like I can do the podcast without you. So,
and what I will say,
we may uninvite you to be co-host.
Well, I think there's some people out there that feel strongly about that, namely me.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, where's Dylan?
And
where's Dylan?
I will say, in the beginning, it was an oral agreement, and I stand by everything that we agreed at that point. And as we know, oral agreements are binding in a court of law. So that's all I'll say about that.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, but I'm back. I was stuck in the mill, 18 here, 20-something there, just all that. And Heather could not leave you guys hanging, could not leave y'all hanging any longer. So she had to jump out there on the solo tip. I think she did a wonderful job. I love her solo projects because I get to listen as a true fan, and I have no idea what's coming next, which is typically how I am the entire time we're recording. But I enjoy it. So thank you, Heather, for being dedicated to our listeners. We have left them hanging here and there lately. Been a lot going on, but it does bother us, and that's why she did that. She was like, nope, it's got to go out. I've got to make this happen.
Oh, is that your version of the story you're sticking to?
That's the damn
great,
truth.
Cool, okay.
That's a damn truth.
Gotcha. All right.
And so here we are. We're back together in the studio.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Hey.
Series of misfortunate events or whatever. Unfortunate events have led me to be in the studio with you.
Yeah, that reverse psychology's working, girl. Keep doing it.
Well, we are almost finished with the month of July. Can you believe it? Heading into August. It seems like summer has flown by.
This year has. Someone commented the other day, like, where did this year go? Everybody had these, oh, we're on the other side of the pandemic. I'm going to do this and that. Had all these goals. This year's going to be better. And shoot, we're thinking about Halloween already.
My days seem so short, you know, like I wake up and I'll start a task or project, and then next thing I know, it's like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, where did my day go?
Yeah, it must be limited bandwidth in the Matrix.
I know, I was going to say, I think the simulation's like chewing up time or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are supposed to be in West Virginia all month. Unfortunately, the case I wanted to finish this month with, the book, I cannot get it here in time. Right? So I've moved along. We're still going to bring you a true crime case, an Appalachian true crime story. A very interesting case, I might add. Unfortunately, we will not be in West Virginia, but that's okay. Heading into Maryland.
And there's no disrespect to West Virginia. We love you.
Are you ready for this, Dylan? But you had a bit of true crime news to kick off the show, right?
Yeah. We were discussing a rather interesting story just a minute ago.
So tell us about this true crime story, Dylan.
Yes, this is according to our favorite website for up-to-date true crime news, people.com. There's a teen has been found dead in Georgia woods, and she allegedly came to the U.S. for a better life but was killed after refusing sex work. Now, this is something I think we've seen time and time again. If you follow true crime, which I know all our listeners do.
And if we know how sex trafficking works.
Yeah, so what happens is either someone is abused and exploited as soon as they get to America, literally on their way to America, they start abusing them, letting them know they have no place to turn. They can't turn to authorities. and all that, isolating them. And then they get them over here and they tell them something like, oh, you're going to work in a restaurant, waitress, dishwasher, whatever, construction, and whatever. And then when they get here, it's just, been a ploy to get you here, take control of you, and sex traffic you.
Yeah, that's often how they lure folks from countries, particularly very poor countries, to the U.S. with the promises of a solid paying job, and it's typically in some sort of service industry. Then they get here and they find out that's not the case.
Now, I hope I say this name right, and I may not, and I apologize. Saria Gomez moved to Atlanta for a waitressing job, but was asked to be a sex worker instead. Now, originally, she came from Ecuador, so it's getting all the earmarks of what you've just described. This country.
Impoverished country,
come to America for a better life, all that. And so she originally moved to Chicago and was there for a while. And she had friends and I don't know about family, but she had good friends.
Like she had some friends. She had made some good friends while she was there. But then was promised this job in Atlanta waitressing. And she has 2 young children and had hoped to earn enough money to be able to send funds back home. But when she gets to Atlanta, it's a sex work position.
Yeah, and I'm going to do a little bit of guessing in this, but it sounds like she was in Chicago, had set herself up, working various jobs, had friends, somewhere to stay safe, was making money. Somebody's come along the line, either online or in person, and promised, oh, if you're making money here, you can make a ton of money in Atlanta if you come down there and be a waitress. Which, to me, I'm like, well, it sounds a little weird. What's the difference between Atlanta and Chicago? But all she's trying to do is work harder, get more money, send back to her 2 children and her mother. So according to her mother, the 19-year-old single mother of 2 moved to the Atlanta area in hopes of finding a waitressing job so she could send money back to her family. But those dreams ended in tragedy last month when her body was found in a wooded area in Hall County, Georgia. Authorities say she has been murdered, so there's no doubt about what's happened to her. Her body was found on Paradise Point Road on June 20th, 2022, the sheriff's office said in a statement. On Tuesday, investigators determined Miss Gomez was a victim of murder. However, there was nothing at the scene that immediately pointed to her identity. And here's a part of it that I find interesting, is the GBI released a sketch of the victim and a person of interest in the case. Maybe someone said to be last seen with her. And through the sketch, which was a beautiful sketch, I must say the artist did, of poor Miss Gomez. And what I thought was cool about the sketch is it's not like just a straightforward sketch. It's like a beautiful.
Well, it's in color.
She's smiling.
Yeah, it's a really pretty.
It's a pretty sketch.
Portrait.
And he put the artist put her in this beautiful, beautiful smile on her face. And that sketch led to the identity of her. And now they're investigating further, and they actually don't have any named suspects and are reaching out to the public for any help. And if you hear this and know anything, might ring a bell. Hey, you never know. Just contact the GBI there or the Atlanta Metro PD. And it's just, this happens so many times. Me and you were talking about it. It just happens so often. It's happening right now. Someone's being forced, tricked into sex trafficking. Women, children, men. I saw a story not about a week ago of a man who thought this chick was really into him. She got him to go on this trip with her, and when he they got to their destination, he was strong-armed by some big dudes and basically pimped out. So I mean, it happens to men too, and it blows my mind that there's just not more energy and effort goes into stopping this stuff. It really does.
And then people will focus on some bullshit conspiracy theory about like Chris Cornell and Anthony Bourdain were working on a documentary that would expose it, and that's why they were suicided and killed. And it's like, okay, I like a good conspiracy theory as much as the next guy, but if people put that much effort into trying to get legislation changed and bring more awareness to this issue and have our elected leaders take it seriously and change the laws and the punishments that go along with this shit instead of just, talking about it in a real fucking fake way. I guess that irritates me.
Well, it's like you said, any good conspiracy theory, and I love the wackiest of them, and I don't believe most of them, has to have some small grain of factual truth or factual evidence to start your theory. And once you start pulling that thread in a real conspiracy theory, in my mind, it should lead to other information or other points of data, if you will, that continue to strengthen your resolve or your thought process that, hey, this is something, this is real. But you can't just pull it completely out of thin air. You can't. And if I ask you the basic, like, wow, what got you started on this, or what made you first think this might be a possibility, you should be able to point to something. And just because I say so or something like that doesn't really work for me.
Yeah, I see a lot of these conspiracy theories about sex trafficking, and they're just so off the wall to me because there's literally like nothing to back it up. And yet we have Jeffrey Epstein, flight logs, Ghislaine,
the Franklin,
and no one has been prosecuted.
Well, the Franklin
besides
child trafficking.
Ghislaine. Yeah. And then Prince Andrew publicly shamed. But I'm like, we should be demanding answers, right? I don't know, because this kind of thing, I mean, we hear a story like this and it just like reaffirms what we already know is taking place. And it's just so fucking terrible.
I agree.
This poor girl, I just really, when I read this article, it broke my heart and it made me feel for her mother and her two children. It's so unfortunate what has happened, and the heartbreaking part of the article as well. The mother was saying how she was trying to get together funds to send, to ship her daughter back to Ecuador. And she's like, they want to send me my daughter's ashes. How do I know for sure that's her?
Yeah, she wants the body returned intact.
And I mean, I don't know, that really was so hard to hear. That this poor mother, I mean, I can't imagine what she's going through or her children. And it's just such a senseless crime, really.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And there's no reason for it to happen. And her last contact her mother had with her, she told her, I don't think this job is what I thought it was. They're trying to get me to do sex work, and I've refused. And that was literally the last conversation and contact she had with her mother. Next thing you know, her remains turn up in a wooded area. So I think it's cut and dry, obviously, or it's rather obvious what this was.
Well, let's hope they find the killer and that they, send this person to jail for a very long time.
Damn, maybe karma will get this piece of shit.
Well, Dylan, one more thing before we get started. I know our true crime fans out there can't get enough of the true crime TV specials and docuseries, and I can't wait to watch this one. It's going to be premiering, I should say, on Peacock, August the 2nd, and it is The Hillside Strangler.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a whole special that's going to dive into the serial killing cousins who terrorized LA in the 70s and I believe maybe into the early 80s. I can't remember the exact dates, but that's a very fascinating case.
Yeah, I must say, I know about it. I know, plenty of podcasts and articles and stories about it, but this will be interesting to see it in an in-depth. And I must say, Peacock, with the backing of NBC behind them, obviously can do something like this. And I think I'm totally pumped to watch that too.
Yeah, so that's going to be something for us to all watch and discuss. Are you ready to get into today's true crime case, Dylan?
Let's do it.
Now, this is an old one, but a good one, okay? It's juicy. It has all the elements you need in a true crime case.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to get some paper towels.
Well, I don't know about that.
Let's dig in.
But it is a wild story and one that I had not heard before, and I'm surprised that this one maybe doesn't have more legs. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's get started. Harry R. Miller was a fire captain in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was known as an amicable gentleman, also known for shrewd investments.
Oh, wow. I'm not known for that.
You are not.
I am amicable, though.
Yes, you're amicable and broke, even though you Make a lot of money. Okay, so he lived with his mother most of his life, along with his sister Flora, in the Walnut Hills neighborhood. He retired with a significant sum of money, and he often bragged about his various profitable financial forays.
So he's good with his money. He makes his money. He puts his money to work for him.
Yes.
That's as the saying goes. And he's not afraid to let people know about it, right?
Right. So after 30 years of service as a fireman, becoming a fire captain, which that's a very respectable job. But you have to consider at the time, this was in, the early part of the 20th century, that was a hard job. They didn't have the big trucks and the hoses. Like, they didn't have the modern fire equipment we have today.
So is this in
This
20s, 30s?
This story takes place in the 30s, but, he was a fire captain for 30 years. So you've got to think he started probably in 1900.
So he started in horse-drawn wagons.
I'm sure.
That have a little bit of water, not a lot, and there's no hydrant hookup. There's none of that. And they basically show up and start bucket lines, right? All these people passing buckets of water. And they have the good old handy axe, and they're busting doors in. They're going into roaring fires with very little protective equipment or backup.
Yeah, they don't have that, the turnout gear that we have today. So when I think of these like old-timey firemen and fire captain, I'm like, that was a difficult job, right? So he had a lot of respect in the community. And after 30 years of service, Harry, a bachelor, retired. After moving to Indiana, Harry fell in love and became engaged to a young woman who was a nurse. It was at this time that he purchased a home east of New Trenton, Indiana, across the Ohio border. It wasn't just a home, but rather a sprawling 25-acre estate. Big house, lots of property. Harry was known to wear flashy suits and drove showy automobiles. He definitely didn't need to talk about his fortune. It was obvious from his lavish tastes. Harry shared his fortunes with his sister Flora. And Flora has an odd history, Dylan. She was once a touring, gifted opera singer known as Florence D'Effia.
Oh, wow.
However, she was plagued with intense paranoia and anxiety. While enjoying the successful opera career with a company that was traveling around, Flora abruptly left with no explanation.
Oh, so she just laid it down in the height of her career, basically.
Yes. She returned to Ohio to live with her mother, never pursuing her talents again. Some speculated perhaps she had a failed romance and had taken it particularly hard. But whatever had happened to Flora, she became despondent and socially withdrawn. So it almost seems, and I'm speculating, that perhaps it was some traumatic incident.
Well, yeah, something to make you walk away from your career. And I think when I think of the opera, how talented the people who can do it are, and it's like a passion. It's not something you easily walk away from. It's not like me leaving a factory job and never going and work in a factory again.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's your, it's art.
It's a gift.
It's you have to have all these, have to have everything lined up just right to be able to even do it. And so, yeah, I agree. I think it was something rather traumatic or a big event that would leave this type of mark on her.
Well, and it seems like afterwards her personality changed a bit. And, I know back in the day, people didn't discuss these types of traumatic events. Like, I mean, we don't know for sure, but she could have been, like, sexually assaulted or something.
Yeah, it's true. And even if she was over touring in the opera and all, hey, sure, I can do that, but I've done it and I'm burnt out, you likely wouldn't become despondent. When you come home, you would be glad to have, time to relax and kind of retire from that. So, yeah, I mean, that's very significant for you to, your whole personality and demeanor to change.
Yeah, that's just what struck me about the story. And of course, we're going on minimal information, but of course, my brain was like going in a million directions with this. Flora became a recluse. Neighbors rarely caught a glimpse of her, but it was known that Flora was a hoarder. She had the basement and attic stuffed to the ceiling with trunks, each holding large collections of theatrical costumes. I see no
wow.
problem with this.
I was going to say you would die if you went in an estate sale and they're like, all we got left is some old trunks full of costumes. You would just be like, oh my gosh, we're buying them all.
I know Dylan's like, we have a storage building full of Heather's costumes.
I would be assessing the value of the trunks. I'm like, yeah, we'll take all the trunks.
So outside of the home, she kept truckloads of marble. People gossiped that Flora had intended to build a castle in the backyard.
Well, I mean, what else are you going to do with a bunch of marble?
I'm going to erect a statue of myself. Of course, I'll make myself look 40 pounds skinnier. Okay, so with her own income, along with money provided by her brother, Flora was able to live very well. At age 66, Flora hired a chauffeur named Heber Hicks.
Wow.
He was a former convict, and Harry did not like him. Hicks was once given a life sentence for murdering a young woman and cutting off her fingers in order to steal her rings.
Okay, well, if I was the brother, this might not be the guy I want around my sister either.
Yet somehow, after only serving 11 years in prison, he was able to get paroled. Wow. Sounds like our justice system has not changed much here
Yeah.
in the United States. The relationship between Flora and Harry became strained, especially with the addition of Hicks to the mix. Flora was often asking Harry for more money, and he repeatedly threatened to cut her off from his savings. One hot June 12th morning in 1936, a little over an hour away from Harry's acreage, sat Carrollton, Kentucky. It was considered a rural town at the time, situated on the Ohio River, where it meets the Kentucky River. Near a secluded creek bed, a farmer discovered debris, what looked like a blood-stained handkerchief, along with a pool of blood seeping into the soil.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But the most alarming discovery was that of an axe dripping in blood. And he knew immediately he had stumbled upon a murder scene.
Well, I mean, what gave it away? The blood-soaked dirt or the dripping, bloody covered axe?
Well,
I said that backwards.
You could think maybe someone injured themselves. I don't know.
Okay.
But then you see a blood dripping, an axe dripping in blood, or blood dripping in axes. I don't know.
Be like I was cutting a little wood for dinner, and and I was just thinking to myself, wow, I hope I don't hit myself with this axe. And I just got carried away, and I just kept hacking at my leg, and now my leg's gone, and that blood or that axe is covered in it.
Well, that's all we need. Just cut off the other leg with an axe, since you've mauled one with a chainsaw.
All my intentions was just to get a little wood for dinner, and now here we are.
Trying to get a little symmetry going on there with your scars. The local newspaper near Cincinnati ran a small story about the farmer's unfortunate find and asking if anyone had information, but this report went cold. 2 weeks later, near Eminence, Kentucky, a body was located in a culvert. There wasn't much to the remains, though, because the head and hands were missing. The body wasn't decomposed to the point that animals might have taken the parts away, and it was clear there were clean cuts to this torso. Once again, Cincinnati newspapers ran information about the gruesome details of the headless body, but no one seemed to make a connection to the previous story about finding the axe and the pool of blood.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that goes hand in hand, I would think.
It was on June 27th, when 3 boys went swimming in Carrollton, that another discovery was made, Dylan. One of the boys noticed something in the murky waters just a few feet below the surface. There was a large school of fish gathering around the object, and as he further investigated, he saw it was a box. Of course, this was during the Great Depression, and the boys had heard stories of buried treasures. They thought maybe they'd stumbled upon some riches. Like most kids would think something like that, right?
Well, yeah, as a child, I would think buried treasure before I did body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 3 struggled to lift the container from the bottom of the lake. The boys were horrified to open the box and see a human hand protruding from concrete which had solidified in the box.
Damn.
Scary, right?
So that's a good way to get rid of, as long as the water stays up, it's a good way to get rid of a body. Put it in a container, pour the concrete in, and then throw it in the water.
That is how the killer in the book, The Lovely Bones, that's what he did. I think he had a safe and filled it with concrete and put bones in it, or a body in it.
Ah.
Right?
Ah, yes.
And like threw it in a pit where people, like a tar pit or something. So yeah, I guess that's one way to dispose of a body.
It didn't work, though.
Just got to do it right.
They done found it.
They done found it. The boys dropped the box on the bank and ran to find help. Law enforcement combed the area. Taking the box into evidence, they dissected the contents carefully to discover not only a hand, but also a man's head inside. Within days, headlines detailing the head and hands were splashed across the newspaper with a sketch of the man's features. Folks in New Trenton quickly identified the remains belonging to Harry Miller. He had last been seen on June 12th at his home, but had been missing for about 2 weeks. You had a question.
Yeah, well, my first thought would be, what condition is the head in once they, obviously broke the concrete block up to, get the remains out that were in it out. And it sounds to me like if you can make a visual ID, very limited, there's no forensics or anything like that back then, that it must have in a way preserved the head intact, it being inside the concrete like a cast.
Very likely.
Wow, that's rather interesting.
It is interesting, Dylan. So like I was saying, Flora being the next of kin, she was notified and asked to come and identify what could possibly be her brother. Her driver, Hicks, brought her to take a look, but neither Flora nor Hicks would say if the head belonged to Harry. So they will not confirm or deny if this is her brother.
I can neither confirm nor deny that head belongs to my brother.
Frustrated, law enforcement brought in a dentist who had seen Harry along with his records. He declared that the head did belong to the missing man. When investigators searched Harry's home, they found a suspicious scene with signs of a struggle. Chairs were overturned, rugs were disheveled as though there had been some kind of a fight. An uneaten and now rotting meal sat out on a table. Soon after, police returned to the home to find Flora and Hicks there. With their reluctance to ID Harry's body, along with reports of the strained relationship that there had been financial trouble between the brother and sister, and then now we have Flora and her driver sneaking around the crime scene, both are arrested on July 2nd.
Oh, wow. So they got motive and they got opportunity because, obviously she knows where her brother's at and can, he's going to see her. And now then they find them. But they didn't go back and straighten the crime scene up. That was a bad move on their part. Okay, very interesting. Wow, that makes me wonder, and I'm going to look into this and report back to our listeners. Of course, they could Google it now. How long have dental records been considered a form of ID with the remains? Seems like it's been quite a while.
For 5 days, the pair was held in custody, being questioned, and they were being moved from jail to jail in Indiana. Finally, nearly 28 hours after being interrogated, well, I guess he had been interrogated for 28 hours, so a long-ass interrogation, Hicks could take no more. His confession laid out a diabolical plan that involved 3 other men, but excluded Flora.
Nice.
According to Hicks, he had been planning to murder Harry since April. Since Harry was unwed with no children, Hicks assumed Flora was set to inherit her brother's fortune, including the monies and real estate. Since Flora was also single with no children, and Hicks had become her dedicated employee, surely some of that money would trickle down, like Reaganomics.
Yeah, hey, is that piss? No, it's Reaganomics.
All he had to do was get rid of Harry. This was kind of a risky plan because there was no surefire knowledge whether Flora would get any of that money at all, but Hicks was willing to take the risk. Hicks offered John Pulaski, a former convict, $2,000 to murder the captain. Pulaski negotiated his rate up to $5,000. After agreeing to commit the crime, Pulaski asked for more help. He was reported to weigh around 160 pounds, compared to Harry, the captain's, 300-pound frame.
Oh, wow. So Harry was a large man.
After staking out Harry's home for a few days, he realized there was no way he could murder this man and move a body by himself. Hicks recruited William Coleman, and they began to scout around the area to find a place suitable for hiding a corpse. With no proper places around Indiana, their search ended in Carrollton, Kentucky.
So he's putting forth that this is his plan. Flora had no idea about it.
Right.
But this is his convoluted plan to get money to Flora and surely some of that money to him.
Yes.
Man, this is a really good plan. I mean, what the fuck? How stupid can you be?
Heber Hicks.
Really
stupid.
Heber Hicks. Okay.
I mean, what a name,
Enough
right?
said, I guess.
It's like a character out of a fucking Wrong Turn movie or something.
It doesn't even sound real.
It doesn't.
You know?
Okay, so about a month into planning, the men realized they would need another person to assist. Again, both men weighed a lot less than Harry Miller. Coleman decided to bring his brother-in-law, Frank William, into the fold. Hicks decided that the only day he could prove an alibi was on Thursdays. So he picked May 28th. He drove to the and I don't know what his alibi could be on a Thursday. Anywho, he drove to the captain's home in New Trenton. The men stopped at a local bar and were drunk when they pulled into Harry's driveway at 9 p.m. So as you mentioned, Dylan, not exactly the smartest guys in the room.
Great planning. So I'm assuming on Thursday he does something either public or something, that's been outlined. He's done every Thursday for whatever reason to where
Plays bingo.
Other witnesses can place him somewhere, without beyond the shadow of a doubt.
Right.
Or you can swing by and get really drunk.
He has his water buffalo meeting.
And keep bringing 100 and some pounder dudes in to help with this big guy, right? I'm going to find the one hulking monster of a man I know. And that's going to be the only person I bring in for muscle. I'm not going to have like 1,245-pound guys.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring in your best friend if I need help.
Well, I'm saying,
right?
would you? But if I wasn't the one being killed, or I don't need no help.
Well, no, I've seen you sling,
right, and he wouldn't need any
rolls
help.
of wire. Both of you guys swing.
Yeah, so we could drag a guy around.
That's why you think I keep y'all around.
But here, these dudes, they're all like 145, 160.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
So they little guys, and they're at the bar,
and there's like 73 of them now,
getting drunk because that's what you do, right? Before you commit a crime.
Totally.
So they found the lights off and the house empty. Disappointed, they planned for the following Thursday, June the 4th. But again, their plans were foiled when Harry Miller wasn't home.
Turns out Harry plays bingo on Thursday nights.
It seems to be the case. Harry goes to karaoke on Thursdays, okay? At the local bar where we go. Then Hicks had this idea that he would lure Harry Miller with the sale of some bootlegged whiskey.
So he's going to put him where he wants him at a certain time.
Yes.
He's sick of this enough nonsense.
Yeah, and this would be how I could lure you.
Yes, the promise of 3 ice-cold tall boys.
Yeah, I know.
Preferably Modelo at the moment. There seems to be a Modelo and a white zero sugar monster shortage, which is very disturbing to me. And
how you drink that shit.
I would be wondering why we're at the bridge or the road to nowhere at 1 o'clock in the morning, but I still would probably go to make sure.
I'd be like, go in that dark tunnel, Dylan. There's the cooler box full of natty ice in there.
Like, why'd you take a cooler in the middle of it in the dark?
Shh.
Well, I better get down here and make sure this water ain't run out this cooler.
Go to the sugar-free monster, Caroline. Okay. So, lining up the sale, Hicks took along the 3 men to Harry's home on June 11th. Pulaski stayed inside the vehicle, while Hicks, Coleman, and William went inside the house. Hicks poured the captain a shot of the whiskey, and as Harry sampled the spirit, Coleman caught him by surprise, delivering a blow from a lead pipe to his head. Harry was stunned, but not immobilized. He jumped to his feet, though bleeding, and tried to break for the front door. Size was not on his side, as he didn't move as fast as the 3 assailants.
Shit, they're quick.
Quick.
Damn it.
Agile little things. Pulaski, realizing something had gone wrong, joined the men at the door and began raining down blows with a lead pipe as well. So they just got a bunch of lead. I mean, what is this fucking Clue?
They all had literal lead pipes.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. I mean, what they're doing is horrible, obviously. Harry didn't deserve any of this.
Oh, shouldn't they be concerned about the lead?
Well, no. Back then, there was lead everywhere. People had lead vests on. Not to protect them from x-rays, just because they thought it looked good.
Okay.
Yeah, while they sipped mercury.
Nice.
The doctor told them to do it.
Put the mercury on your face. It'll clear up the acne. Okay, so yeah, they got Harry on the ground. They're beating him with these lead pipes. This is a pretty gruesome scene, right?
Yeah, all this blunt force trauma is horrible.
Once he was lying in a pool of his own blood, they wrapped his body in a blanket, then carried him to the car. Hicks decided to stay behind and clean up the mess while the other three drove to the dump site. Now, if you remember, he didn't do a fucking good job of cleaning up the mess.
It's not like he didn't do anything. I
It's
mean,
'cause he's fucking dumb, Dylan. He's
So-
a dumb shitbird.
it's a whole flock of them.
Yeah,
okay, it's a
it
nest.
really is.
So yeah, he stays there. Okay, your only job is now we're going to get rid of the body. You need to stay here and straighten up. Obviously, clean up the blood. Set the overturned chairs back up, smooth everything out, make it look normal. As soon as the investigators open the door, it's obvious that something happened. I mean, come on.
I know, it's like you had one job, Heber Hicks.
You had-
One job.
Oh, Heber was in charge of
Yeah,
cleanup?
this was Heber's job.
Okay.
So by now the men had the cover of night, mere miles from the dump site at a ferry crossing, because this is back in the day when they didn't have the bridges, Dylan, and you had to take a ferry to cross the river.
Oh, no.
Suddenly, Harry Miller roused in the back seat. He wasn't dead. Pulaski struggled with Harry in the back seat until Coleman pulled out a gun and shot Harry in the torso and once in the head. At this point, Harry was definitely deceased. He went limp in the back seat and never moved again. When the men arrived at the dumping grounds, they quickly worked to dig a hole. Almost as soon as they started, the men hit rock with their shovels, and there was no way they could bury the 300-pound man in a deep grave. Pulaski suggested they dismember the corpse. Not only would it be easier to bury, but they could also conceal Harry's identity. That's when they chopped off Harry's head and hands, then filled them in a box and added concrete before carting them off through rural Kentucky. When they found the lake, they disposed of the box, and then they dumped Harry's torso, what was left of his body, it's like torso and legs, in a culvert just before sunrise.
Yeah. And of course, with these bumbling idiots, all the remains were found. Because I'm sure they went and threw the concrete box in like the shallow part of the lake.
Well, they did. Little boys found it swimming
Yeah.
and were able to,
See it and say, hey, there's something.
3 children could pick up this box from the water and put it on the shore.
So the 3 children were stronger than this group of freaking idiots that just murdered this poor man.
Yeah, they're definitely morons. Hicks seemingly didn't do a very good job of cleaning up the house because only a few months later, police would find signs of a struggle.
Months.
Well, I meant weeks. I'm
Or
sorry.
even, I mean, still,
But yeah.
weeks. No one ever.
Well, I don't think they found it till, did I say it was August or July? I'm sorry. I think they found the house, it was like in July. So
yeah. So it's been some time later.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I put months, but I meant weeks.
Long enough to think about, hey, should I maybe double check the scene? I probably had plenty of opportunity being his sister's driver, right?
Absolutely.
To
He had access
go
to the
again,
home.
make sure I did a good job. Maybe after things calm down in your mind, hey, I better double check that. Nope, not old
See, I
Heber.
feel like that's why I could never commit a crime like this, because I would keep going back to double check my work.
They would catch you at the funeral or something like that.
They would be
The
like,
scene.
you keep showing up in gloves with, your bleach and
Yeah,
your little
your-
scrub brush.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could never get away with it.
In your sunshine cleaner van with your industry standard enzyme killing cleaners and stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So once Hicks had finished confessing, a nationwide manhunt began for the 3 other men. Pulaski was located first and went to trial along with Hicks on December 7th of 1936. Frank William and Coleman were arrested as the trial was happening. I believe they were located in Oregon. So they'd hit the road and gone pretty far away. Okay. So all 4 men agreed that the murder had gone down just as Hicks had said, and the 4 men were sentenced to the death penalty. Hicks had 2 failed appeals, and on March 6th of 1938, he was put to death. The other 3 men were executed on the same day, which was June 10th of 1937, and it was considered kind of an anomaly to have the 3 executed on the same day
Oh, okay.
that had been involved in the same crime.
Yeah, I say it is a success.
So electric chair for these guys. During the trial, there were times when Hicks pointed a finger at Flora, calling her conniving and greedy. Her involvement will never be known. She escaped any jail time and was never taken to trial. In her later years, Flora lived in Cincinnati. In 1954, at 83 years old, Flora was residing in the Alms Hotel in downtown Cincinnati, which, from what I understand, was like a very ritzy, posh hotel.
So she's still living her best life.
Still living the high life. She had not left her room in 7 years, this hotel room.
See, yeah, I still agree with you from earlier in the story that some type of trauma happened to her. No, it could have been anything. Severe trauma. That's when she left the opera, became a recluse, even exhibited signs of hoarding, which is almost always tied to some type of loss or trauma. And she continued to be it sounds like a recluse through the end of her life.
The details of this story involving Flora right now, there were a few pieces of information. So what I think happened, Dylan, is that Flora wouldn't leave her room for 7 years. And she was hoarding in the room, which I'm going to get to here in a moment. When the hotel employees tried to, get her to leave the room, sanitary hygiene type of issues going on, she became hysterical and threatened to shoot anyone who came into the room. Police entered her room using a battering ram, and inside they found piles of garbage, expired food, and a hoard that touched the ceiling of this hotel room.
Wow.
It was a bizarre collection of mid-Victorian items. It was also determined that she owned a 12-room house in Cincinnati, which was filled with her personal effects.
I mean, not to make light of someone
She
being
had
murdered.
hoarded the house
full,
and
then
hoarded
moved to the
this
hotel.
Yeah.
I would love to go through this hoard piece by piece.
No, it sounds amazing. Though I was reading, and one of the quotes was, you may find, like, one item would be an amazing find, and then you would get something that was just absolute trash in there. So it just seemed like she kept everything.
I could live with that. This amazing mid-Victorian treasure and then a bag of poo.
Yeah.
I could deal with that.
Okay. Well, Flora was committed to a sanitarium where she lived until 1962. She was 91 years old when she died. In the end, her estate was valued at a little over $200,000, which is the equivalent of about $1.7 million today.
It was still that value at the end.
Yes.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like she did get her brother's assets and estate.
Likely.
Likely.
Though she did have her own money. And it seems, of course, newspapers were written in a very delicate manner, the way things were worded back in the day.
They were vague.
But it was it was implied that I think they were a family who had money, and they lived in this Walnut Hills neighborhood, which was kind of like full of Victorian homes at the time. May still be, I'm not sure. But that it was kind of a, like upper middle class. So it seems like maybe they had some money to begin with, and then Flora had her own money, and then she acquired some of her brother's money. So, yeah.
Wow. What a story. Yeah, 12-room house. I don't care, even if it's, how the old houses have a lot of small rooms. That's still a big house.
It's a big house.
Makes me think
Exactly.
of the Airbnb we stayed in.
But gosh, can you imagine what she had stowed away?
No.
Just the theater costumes alone.
And I wonder
See?
what happened to her estate at that point, since she had no known relatives, it seems.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming it
The state.
probably went to the state, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Unless they had, like, cousins or some distant relative.
Well, so, Heber stated in the beginning, this was my plan. Flora had nothing to do with it. So it seems to me like she really didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, I don't think she had anything to do with it.
The death
and
of her
just
brother.
given her condition, whatever, if she was, had some paranoia, depression, if it was some further mental, issue, I don't know. But she trusted this guy, hired him, and really put a lot of faith in him, right? Which seems like she was very shut off from the world. So that was a big deal for her.
Right.
To put her trust in this man. And he just took advantage of this woman.
Yeah, and I think
her brother.
I think he felt confident if her brother died, which obviously they're going to murder him. She gets all of it in one basket, the estates, all the money, that he could manipulate her.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously
or
that was his
perhaps he
intentions.
had plans to
Yeah.
get rid of her.
Yeah, after
know?
like making a will out of crayon, right? That's how he would do it. And then make her sign it and then, kill her and be like, no, this is crayon. This is real.
He'd pull out the Dylan, we have an oral contract.
We had an oral agreement.
Yeah.
These 1,645-pound or so associates of mine were all witnesses. Okay, we were trying to move one couch for her. That's why we were all there. And, yeah, that's the truth. But they got their just desserts. Sounds like they got their just desserts to me. They were executed on old Sparky.
Yeah. Bunch
Right?
of fucking idiots, it sounds like.
Well,
I'm sorry, if you're ever going to commit a crime, I feel like stopping off at the bar and then showing up to the house drunk to commit your crime, whether you're like breaking in it, whatever. It's like, just go to do your crime sober.
you don't do that until like you have the spoils of your crime later, and you're living the high life.
Yeah, pirates weren't drinking the rum before they pirated, right? Before they were
Well,
pillaging.
I think they probably drank the rum the whole time.
No, they waited. They waited till they had pillaged, Dylan, and they're sitting on their piles of gold.
So they waited till they got back to Nassau.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's,
I would
that's
be-
the story I'm going with.
I'm going to have rum the whole time.
Yeah, I know. That's why I just don't want to work with you.
That's why you refuse to let me on your pirate ship. And I think that's just
Dude, I'm at the point where I'm like refusing to be in the same house with you. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
cut it off, bro.
yeah. Well, you know
get
what?
none. Okay.
I got one more barrel of rum left.
No.
Yeah, it's got a big
no.
cork in it.
You need to put a cork in it.
Oh my God, it's like damn prohibition agents here.
Yeah, just call me Carrie Nations. I'm gonna get a little hatchet and I'm gonna chase you around the house.
No, we also had a discussion about how often the damn axe was used back in the day to kill people.
It was.
Yeah.
I guess it was just readily available. Everybody had an axe.
Well, there you go. It was readily available. Everybody had one.
Everybody had to chop wood.
Yeah, it was found in every homestead.
Like us, these people didn't have central heat and air, right?
And it definitely will get the job done, right?
Gosh, what a brutal.
Could you imagine? I mean, just
brutal.
being struck with the business end of an axe. And
No.
for some reason, blunt force trauma,
So painful.
deaths, murders, leave a mark on me. I don't, and I know what it is. It's not clean. Like strangulation, that would be so bad, because it takes minutes and minutes to happen. You're conscious for, part of it at least. And the blunt force traumas, you never know what blow actually takes you out. If you have any mercy at all, it's going to be the first or second strike, and then you're at least knocked out before you're killed. But just what if it's the fucking last of like 10 or 12?
The case that really, I guess, just brought it home for me, like the horrific nature of like a blunt force trauma death or murder were the Wonderland murders.
Agreed.
Because those fucking people, what they suffered before death
And it being multiple
is
victims.
fucking horrible.
That's pretty
right?
bad.
Yeah, I don't want to be axe murdered. I don't want to be beaten with a lead pipe either.
John pulled that thing out and just started taking people out with it.
Stupid.
That's the movie I saw.
So stupid.
All right, so that was a oldie but goldie. And another example of humans being horrible to other humans. And it's like you never run out of these stories. Greed. You know what? Because if that guy had just done, been faithful, trustworthy to this woman, he was probably already benefiting. Because it sounds like he probably led some dumb shitbird life, So just being kept up and just around the edges of this wealth.
Well, had he just
He was
been
probably
a
already-
loyal employee,
Yeah.
she probably would have left her money.
Yeah, who knows?
Her bit of fortune to him.
Yeah, he could have ended up with
I
the
mean-
200-some thousand in the end. Oh my gosh. All right.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. All right. Anything else?
No.
All right. Until next time, we are going to get our midweek.
Oh, well, we should mention that we still can't access our Instagram account.
I think you'll never get it back.
No, I think we're just done. So I'm going to have to create a new Instagram account. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I told Heather, people who do the gram, they love it. So if you have been doing that with us, Heather loves seeing people, hearing from people. When she gets a new one up, she'll throw it out there. Excuse me. And she'd love for you to jump back on, right?
I would.
Come one, come all.
Yeah.
Hey.
It's like a love train.
It is a love train.
So hold hands.
Okay.
Disco dance.
All right. Until the midweek, we bid you adieu.
Farewell. Bon voyage.